I never imagined that my sister would allow me to be publicly embarrassed about my miscarriage. But what transpired a week later astounded everyone. 2 months ago, my husband Jason and I received the most exquisite surprise. We learned that we were expecting a child. This was unexpected and felt like a genuine gift from God. You see, over the past 2 years, we've had a difficult journey trying to start a family. We faced many obstacles when it came to getting pregnant, and at one point, I did get pregnant, but regrettably, I miscarried. It was heartbreaking, and it took a long time for Jason and me to even start to recover from the trauma of that loss. After the miscarriage, we decided to stop actively trying for a child. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the right thing for our mental health. So we left things to the universe and focused on other aspects of our lives. Little did we know that the universe had its timing for us. 2 months ago, I woke up feeling a little strange and heavier than usual, and I had a severe case of nausea, like the classic morning sickness you always hear about. At first, I thought it might just be a random bug or something I ate. But then I had a tiny thought, could I be pregnant? I decided to take a pregnancy test to be sure, and when I saw the positive result, I was completely shocked. Jason and I were ecstatic. We were crying, smiling, and just soaking in the news. It's difficult to describe the feeling, but ever since, we've been on cloud 9 and can't stop talking about it and dreaming about the future. Since it's only 2 months into the pregnancy, we want to be cautious because we've been through a lot in the past and want to make sure everything is going well before sharing the news with everyone else. As for family, Jason doesn't communicate with his side of the family because they've always been really negative. He decided to cut ties with them for his peace of mind, and I fully support him in that. This miracle has brought a whole new light into our lives, and even though we're so excited, we've decided to keep the news between the two of us for the time being. Another reason I have been delaying my pregnancy announcement is because this week was my youngest sister Bonnie's baby shower. Bonnie is also expecting her first child and has been ecstatic about becoming a mother. She has been counting down the days and planning every little thing with such joy. My family is supportive and loving, but we are still holding off on telling them for the time being because we don't want to give them the good news too soon, especially if something were to go wrong later. I can see how happy she is, and it's obvious that this is a very special time for her. My parents are also very excited because this will be their first grandchild. Since Bonnie can be a little sensitive about attention, I didn't want to take away any of the attention from her big moment. Bonnie has always enjoyed having her moments celebrated without interruptions, and this baby shower was one of those occasions. I know how important this was to her, and I didn't want to do anything that might shift the focus or give her the impression that her special day was overshadowed, because this week was all about her, and I wanted to honor that. Bonnie trusted me to plan the entire baby shower, and she gave me the responsibility of making sure everything was flawless and in line with her vision. She sent me countless Pinterest boards with pictures and ideas for the themes and decorations she wanted, and it was obvious that she had a dream for her baby shower, and I was determined to make it a reality. It was a big task that required a lot of time, effort, and energy, but I was at the venue early to make sure everything was set up perfectly, running around double-checking the decorations, setting the tables, and making sure that every little detail was just right. It was exhausting, but I didn't mind because I knew how much this day meant to my sister. My main goal was to make sure that when she arrived at the venue, she felt like it was everything she had ever dreamed of. I didn't mind because I wanted to give her a beautiful and memorable celebration that she would cherish forever. As the day progressed, guests began to arrive one by one, and the atmosphere became lively. I stayed busy assisting everyone with their accommodations and setting their gifts aside so we could have a dedicated time to open them later. When my mom arrived, her reaction made all the hard work feel so worthwhile. She was utterly amazed by how everything looked. It was exactly like the Pinterest photos she had shared with me. Her excitement was contagious, and I felt proud of what I had put together for her special day. I had also planned a few entertaining baby shower games, and soon everyone was laughing and having a great time. So everything was going smoothly, and the focus was entirely on Bonnie as I had wanted. Then, Claudia arrived, and she pulled me aside to thank me. She told me how much she appreciated the effort I had put into making this day amazing for Bonnie, and hearing that from her was heartwarming. I felt grateful that my hard work was being recognized by the people who mattered most. Although Bonnie adores her, the truth is that Claudia and I have never really gotten along. From my point of view, Claudia is someone who likes to stir things up. She always has to have the last word in arguments, is loud when she does so, insists that she is always right, and has a flair for the dramatic. Over time, I've just learned to avoid her whenever possible because dealing with her energy is exhausting. Since this was my sister's baby shower, I didn't have much of a choice but to invite Claudia. As soon as she entered the room, her first comment about the party was a sarcastic remark about how simple the theme was and how she could have done a much better job planning the shower. I pursed my lips, trying to maintain my composure, and looked at my sister to see how she was reacting to my surprise. Bonnie simply dismissed Claudia's remarks, grinning and expressing how happy she was to see her. However, Claudia continued to make passive-aggressive remarks to me throughout the afternoon. Even in front of other guests, she would always say that my preparations for the baby shower were not up to standard. It was frustrating, to say the least, especially since I had put so much effort into making this day special for my sister. But I remained silent for Bonnie's sake. However, Claudia wasn't done testing my patience. At one point, she approached me and made a rude remark about the catering, implying that I should have hired a more premium caterer rather than someone she assumed I found locally with no experience. Her tone was so condescending that I couldn't help but feel surprised. I calmly pointed out that the caterer I had chosen was very well known and came highly recommended, and everyone at the party seemed to enjoy the food, so I didn't understand why she felt the need to complain. Then, in the most ridiculous part, she claimed that the food was too oily for her taste, even though she was still chewing on it. I lost patience and told her, "Well, if you think it's so oily and bad, maybe you should stop eating it." I also pointed out quite loudly that I had already noticed that she had finished 2 full plates and was now on her 3rd plate, so if the food wasn't up to par, why was she still eating it? When it was time to open Bonnie's gifts, we all gathered around, excited to see what everyone had brought for her and the baby. The atmosphere felt warm again as we admired each thoughtful gift, and guests were gushing over the adorable baby items. Bonnie looked so happy, soaking in all the love and attention for a moment, before Claudia struck again, loudly clinking her glass to get everyone's attention and getting up to declare that she wanted to make a speech. I instantly tensed up, fearing what she might say. At first, her words seemed innocent enough as she talked about how happy she was for Bonnie, how excited she was to meet the baby, and how much she valued their friendship. Then, without missing a beat, she added, "I just wish I had been the one to throw this baby shower instead of your sister, who doesn't have children." I couldn't believe this woman's audacity in calling me that, as if it were an insult. And why wouldn't I organize my sister's baby shower? I rolled my eyes at her, trying to remain composed, but then Claudia smirked and said, "But you know what, Bonnie, I understand why you let your sister organize all this. I mean, this is probably the closest she'll ever get to having a baby shower herself, given everything she's been through." Time seemed to freeze. I stared at her in shock as she giggled and turned to face me, obviously pleased with herself. The room fell silent, and I could feel the weight of awkward glances being exchanged around me. My cheeks burned with embarrassment and disbelief, so I couldn't keep quiet and asked Claudia directly, "What do you mean by that?" She asked, pretending to be surprised and acting innocent. "Oh, I didn't know this was a secret. Was I not supposed to say anything? Bonnie had told me everything about your experience, and I assumed everyone else already knew." Her voice sounded fake, and it was obvious to me and probably everyone else in the room that she knew exactly what she was doing. She was purposefully embarrassing me by revealing one of the most painful and private aspects of my life in front of a room full of people. I looked at Bonnie, shaking with anger and disbelief, expecting my sister to defend me because she had to know how unkind and inappropriate Claudia's words were. To my surprise and disappointment, Bonnie avoided eye contact completely and said nothing. Fortunately, my mother intervened to try to defuse the situation, berating Claudia and telling her that she shouldn't be saying such foolish things, especially when she was a little tipsy. However, rather than fully supporting me, she turned to me and said, "Let it go, it's not a big deal." I felt hurt, angry, and completely alone in that moment. Without wasting any more time, I turned to gather my belongings. My hands were shaking, but I didn't care. I just wanted to leave. I grabbed my jacket and purse and loudly declared that I couldn't stay there any longer and that the baby shower could continue without me. I was mortified that my deeply personal struggles had just been thrown out into the open in the most careless way possible, and the person I thought would have my back, my sister, had remained silent. Both Bonnie and my mother tried to stop me right away when I was in that room with people who had just witnessed my embarrassment and Claudia sitting there satisfied after what she'd done. My mother, however, came running after me, obviously flustered, and pleaded with me to stay, saying that I was exaggerating the situation and making a big deal out of something that was said lightly. She also continued to defend Claudia, claiming that her best friend didn't mean what she had said and that Claudia was just being herself. She insisted on dismissing it as a harmless joke and pleaded with me to stay, saying that I was making things awkward for everyone. I stopped and tried to remain calm as I looked at her. I told her that I would stay, but only as she asked Claudia to leave. After what she had just said to me, I wouldn't sit in the same room as that woman. Bonnie hesitated, looking conflicted, and then she began to argue back, saying in an almost insensitive way, "Claudia is important to me. She's my best friend." Her words struck me like a ton of bricks. After the way she spoke to me, I asked, my voice rising, even after everything she had said to make me look small in front of everyone. Bonnie shrugged as if it didn't matter, and then she said something I will never forget. Claudia didn't lie with her tone. Rather, she simply stated the facts. You had challenges, and yes, you did have a miscarriage. But why are you so upset? I looked at her as if the earth had just been pulled out from under me. Even Flink simply looked at me and said, "You need to stop feeling so insecure about it and just embrace it. It's your reality." Her words were more painful than anything Claudia had said, because this was my sister, not just her best friend, minimizing my pain, invalidating the struggles I had faced, and reducing everything to something I was supposed to accept without question. I realized how little she understood me and how little she cared about how much this had hurt me, and I simply shook my head at her in disappointment. A part of me wanted to yell at her and say the words that would permanently silence her and Claudia. "I'm pregnant, I'm having a baby," but I refrained because I didn't want anyone to know about my pregnancy, especially not in all this tension. Instead, I took a deep breath and spoke calmly, even though my voice was cold, telling her, "You and I are done," and reminding her of everything I had done for her up until this point, including moving heaven and earth to give her the baby. Before she could reply, I added one last thing. "I paid half of the caterer's bill, but as far as I'm concerned, you're responsible for the rest." Bonnie's eyes widened in surprise as she attempted to respond. I reminded her of how much effort I had put into making her happy, even at the expense of my energy and emotions. She went on to let her best friend belittle me in front of everyone, and she not only allowed it, but she also defended Claudia's behavior. My mother has been scolding me for being too harsh on my sister ever since that day. She has criticized me numerous times for not handling things differently and told me that after the shower, Bonnie didn't have enough money to cover the remaining catering bill and had to dip into her savings to pay it. I got up as she called me unfair and said that I couldn't just leave Bonnie with the remaining cost, but I didn't care anymore and simply turned on my heel and walked away, leaving her standing there. She's been pressuring me to make amends with Bonnie and even reimburse her for the remaining caterer expenses, but every time my mom brings it up, I feel the same irritation and anger rising to the surface. I can't get over the fact that Bonnie let Claudia embarrass me in front of everyone, dismissing my pain and expecting me to ignore it. Why should I forgive her when she doesn't even seem remorseful? Why should I reimburse her when she failed me as a sister? To be clear, I did not agree to pay for the entire baby shower. She informed me that, as her older sibling, it was my duty to cover the cost and show her future child love and support. I had already paid the caterer half of the total and intended to pay the remaining amount at the event, but after everything that happened, I didn't want to spend any more money on her. I'm glad she had no choice but to cover the rest, but I won't reimburse her because it was her baby shower, and Bonnie is fortunate that I'm not asking her to reimburse me for everything I've already spent on her. Since the baby shower, Bonnie and my mother have been trying to guilt-trip me into talking to them, but I've been avoiding their calls. When my husband Jason learned about everything that had happened at the baby shower, he was furious. He couldn't believe how I'd been treated, not only by Claudia, but also by my sister and mother. He wasn't going to sit idly by while someone disrespected me. So he located Claudia on Instagram and sent her a direct message, explaining everything. His message must have shaken Claudia to her core because he told her that if she had anything to say about a woman's fertility struggles, especially without any proof, then he and I would have no trouble taking legal action for defamation. He made it clear that he wasn't like my mother or my sister, who would just stand by and do nothing while she insulted me. He went further than that, telling her clearly that he would gladly meet her face to face to hear it if she had anything more to say about me. It's been a month since my last update, and a lot has changed since then. After everything that happened at the baby shower, I've officially distanced myself from my family, as you can see. For weeks after the event, she may have responded with an apology, but it felt insincere. She attempted to defend her actions by saying that she didn't remember much of what happened at the baby shower because she had been extremely intoxicated. Jason and I both knew that this was a weak excuse, but she did apologize in the end. My mother and Bonnie simply wouldn't let the matter go. I had told them both that I needed a sincere apology for everything they had done to me, and even though she apologized, It felt incomplete because she couldn't help but blame me for walking out and making Bonnie look bad in front of everyone. Her words stung, as though I was somehow responsible for the disrespect I had experienced. Bonnie, on the other hand, flatly refused to apologize, instead hardening her stance, that she wasn't accountable for what her best friend Claudia had said to me, that it wasn't her responsibility, and that it was somehow acceptable to watch her best friend speak to me like that without intervening. That was heartbreaking, but Bonnie went one step further and began requesting money from me, claiming that I was responsible for paying the remaining catering expenses she had to cover. When I refused to pay the remaining amount, she attempted to guilt-trip me by claiming that she needed the money for her child, but I refused to give her anything because I had already paid my share, and I wasn't going to give in to her manipulation. But when I refused, she threatened to deny me access to her baby once it was born unless I paid her the money. Something inside of me suddenly realized how toxic and manipulative she had become, or perhaps always had been, and I calmly told her that I didn't want to meet her or her child anyway. Bonnie then escalated the situation further by posting cryptic messages on her Instagram stories that were directed at me. One story read, "Family sometimes stabs you in the back," and another said, "Cheap people don't deserve sympathy." It was very clear who she was referring to, and honestly, it felt like she was unnecessarily dragging the situation on. All I wanted was an apology and the opportunity to move on, but Bonnie seemed intent on making this into a dramatic spectacle. Her posts, words, and attitude made it clear that she wasn't interested in making things right. Instead, she was only interested in making me look like the bad person, which is why I ended all communication with her. But yesterday, after several days of silence, Bonnie messaged me as if nothing had ever happened between us. She asked if I would be willing to watch her child after she gave birth and had to go back to work. She explained that she and her husband had been talking about it and that they wouldn't be able to afford a nanny and that our mother was refusing to help, so Bonnie was hoping I would step in. She even wrote that she was willing to let the past be forgotten if I agreed to help and babysit her child. She didn't acknowledge anything that happened or describe how she and Claudia had treated me, but somehow she assumed that I would just forget everything and offer to look after her child for the sake of the family. I couldn't believe it, after everything she had said and done, after how she had treated me, that she now expected me to take on the role of caregiver for her child. It was completely unrealistic. I responded with a single word. No. Bonnie didn't take that well. Right away, she began sending me a series of messages accusing me of being selfish for not agreeing to help her. My mother, as usual, couldn't stay out of it and decided to get involved. She also called me today and told me that I needed to stop holding on to resentment toward Bonnie for what Claudia had said that day. She went on and on about how we were still sisters and that Bonnie was my family, while also reminding me that Bonnie still doesn't know that I'm pregnant and that I haven't told anyone yet, not even my own family, and that I feel like they all still don't deserve to know. Even though I didn't want to, she insisted that by doing so, I would be helping Bonnie and her husband a lot. At this point, I couldn't stand it any longer. I was tired of her and Bonnie constantly pushing my boundaries and putting me in situations where I had no say. They seemed to believe that I had to give in every time, and I couldn't take it any longer. I told her that if she was so concerned, she should take charge and help Bonnie herself rather than attempting to involve me. I made it clear that I wasn't required to watch Bonnie's child, especially after everything that had happened, but my mother tried to argue more in an attempt to make me feel guilty, as she always does. I could feel my patience running out, so I just snapped. I told her that I needed a permanent break from her and Bonnie, and that I couldn't handle their constant pressure. I ended the call immediately, and this time I blocked both of them because I've had enough of their emotional manipulation and the way they treat me like I'm some kind of doormat. They've crossed too many boundaries. My dad, on the other hand, hasn't supported me through all of this, and to be honest, I'm not in the mood to talk to him either. I just want peace right now, and I don't want to hear from them anymore. I'm so tired of the drama that I need time away from it all to focus on myself. I just hope that they'll leave me alone after this. Update 3. It's been a long time since I last posted anything here, and for those who have been following my story, I have some exciting news. I finally gave birth to a beautiful daughter this week, and my husband and I are overjoyed. We feel so fortunate, and we are already deeply in love with her. In case you were wondering, I never officially announced my pregnancy to anyone because I cut off most of my family. Until this week, when I shared a picture of my daughter, I felt that this was the best way to let them know I was expecting, and my daughter was born. As you can imagine, people were excited. The most unexpected part of it all came when my dad finally got in touch. I assume he heard the news from other relatives because he called me this week and said how shocked he was to learn I had a baby now and how he didn't even know I was pregnant. I couldn't help but point out to him that he hadn't even known I was pregnant. When they saw my post, I received a ton of congratulations from my grandparents and distant relatives who were all excited to meet my little one. It's a little overwhelming, but also sweet to know that some people still care and want to celebrate this moment with us. My dad wasn't even blocked on my phone, so he could have just picked it up and called me, but he didn't because he seemed to have taken my mom and sister's side and didn't want anything to do with me. He then went on to tell me that my mom, Bonnie, and some other relatives were upset with me for keeping my pregnancy a secret from them. How was he supposed to know? It's not like I was keeping it a secret just to get even with him. No one had been there for me when I needed support, so I didn't feel the need to share anything with them. He told me that at the end of the day, we are all family, and I should have told them such important news regardless of what had happened between us. I listened, but to be honest, I didn't want to hear it. I told him that his mom and Bonnie were free to feel whatever they wanted, but that I didn't want to hear any of it because they never took into account my feelings or respected my boundaries. So this is just a result of their actions, and it is not my responsibility to involve them in my life when they haven't done anything to regain my trust. To be completely honest, I'm not upset with my family anymore, but I'm also done playing the part of the person who goes out of their way to please others. After becoming a mother, I have my daughter to look after and prioritize, and everything else seems so insignificant in comparison. I want peace and happiness for my daughter. He should not call me again unless he has something else to talk about besides my mom and my sister. My small family and I are choosing peace now. Not even my relatives should interfere anymore.